What's up, guys? Jar here, back with another video. And basically, in this video, I'll be breaking down basically my process on if I lost everything. Here's how I'd restart my clothing brand. So basically, this is my clothing brand, Angelic. As you can see, this is my Instagram, TikTok, website. Bada boom, bada bop. And let's get straight to it. So there's two primary things that we want to focus on when starting a new brand from scratch, and that's primarily product and distribution, right? So when we're thinking about a new brand, we want to think about a product that we can serve to an underserved segment of the market that we can bring a lot of value to, basically some newness to the market, or just present it in a better way. And then number two, we're going to be thinking about distribution, and really that's really the only two fundamental things that really matters for an actual business and brand, and everything else is pretty much operationalized around that to make sure that nothing breaks. But yeah, I'll kind of give you guys an example. So this is Echo Vision beaters. They're like basics brand on TikTok Shop that popped up, around I believe 2-3 years ago, and they started pushing big on TikTok Shop. Once that new distribution channel opened up, and essentially it allows for a lot of high volume, in terms of high volume sales, but low AOVs. But they're pushing so much volume that they I believe they're doing like millions of dollars a month, just off that. And then you move into more mid-market in terms of pricing, and you got something like me, like Angelic, mid-market premium. Then you move into like luxury with the premium pricing, as you can see here. So you can see the discrepancies in the overall pricing. So you got $9 for a wife beater tank top. You got $58-$60 for a tee, and then you got $3,500 for a button up workwear jacket. And as you can see, like with the product, right, we got three different types of product, right, but we can't distribute and market them all the same way, right? So with Echo Vision beater, they have nice synergy with TikTok Shop, right? So that is their ability to distribute that product, right? And they wouldn't really do well on meta ads or in the auction unless they were to boost their AOV up or have crazy high LTV to justify their customer acquisition cost, right? Because their AOV is inherently low, right? Now if they do bundles and things like that, maybe they can push their AOV up to make that CAC reasonable, relative to the overall LTV. But just from this perspective, from a single product perspective, single SKU, it's not feasible for that distribution channel. But for TikTok Shop, it is, right? Because the customer acquisition cost is so much lower. Now, when it comes to my brand, right, I'm tailored towards Meta, right? I can work on Meta. $60 tee, I can make that work on Meta, right? Especially when we take into the account of there's multiple items for a streetwear brand. We can do like shipping thresholds and things of that nature to overall boost AOVs, in-cart upsells, things of that nature. But it wouldn't necessarily work on TikTok Shop. Now, you could argue that it could, but the whole idea of a streetwear brand is for that kind of coolness factor, right? So if you distribute a clothing brand on streetwear clothing brand on TikTok Shop, my viewpoint is that you're inherently, hurting your brand identity and status. You know what I'm saying? So if I were to get like $1 million, purchase order, wholesale order for, let's say, Walmart, I wouldn't necessarily take it for Angelic, because that is bad from the consumer and brand identification association standpoint. You know what I mean? So moving on to Louis Vuitton, right? They're primed for retail, right? It's going to be hard to make meta work, right? In terms of direct to consumer, direct response, in terms of getting that, because the consideration cycle is a lot longer, and there's a lot more that goes into that than just a single attributed click and sale on Meta. So as you can see, just off this example, right? There's different distribution channels for different products that ultimately is going to make the whole entire funnel work, and we need to be very cognizant of that. So basically, based off the type of brand that we wish to produce, we need to be very, very clear on how we are going to distribute that product, right? So moving to the next thing, we want to identify our areas of leverage for the business, right? So using Taylor Holiday's and Common Thread Collective's 4-quarter accounting, Basically, he just breaks down the P&L into these four buckets, right? So basically, we have our CAC, and then we have our cost of delivery, then we have our OPEX, then we have our profit. So essentially, CAC is basically all your marketing expense, right? So everything in every dollar that goes into marketing. Cost of delivery, this is every dollar that goes into delivering to the customer. So that includes your shipping and handling, your pick and pack fees, your cost of goods sold, things like that, right? And even your transaction fees and things like that. And your OPEX is going to be your fixed overhead expenses. Fixed overhead. And then basically you're just subtracting all of that and to get your profit, right? And as you can see here in this, their biggest line item is the cost of delivery, is taking up 45% of revenue, right, and leaving them to $0 or 0% in EBITDA. Here's an example, right, of what a typical apparel brand could look like, right? Cost of delivery, you're sitting at around 44%. CAC, you're sitting at around 30%. So that equates to like a MER of around 33% would be like a 3 MER. OPEX 10%, and that leaves you with an EBITDA of 16%, as you can see here. So basically, if you were to do $10,000 in revenue, 4,000 of that would go into cost of delivery, 3,000 of that will go into your marketing, and then $1,000 of that will go to your actual OPEX, and then you'll be left with an EBITDA of 1,600, which is actually very healthy for direct to consumer. 16%. That's ideally where you want to be, in that 15 to 20% range. But yeah, basically from there, that's kind of how you want to curate, your business. Like really, you want to optimize for the end goal. Make sure that the math works. You know what I mean? Because if you have a low AOV, right? Let's say your AOV is $9, right? Then you can know that your cost of delivery, and your overall cost of goods might be very high relative to your actual selling price, your MSRP, right? You might not be making a whole bunch in terms of gross profit margin, but you're selling so much in high volume that you kind of make up with the actual overall profit dollars, right, and contribution dollars. So that's something you got to take into account. But with a higher, let's say elevated, let's say this was 60% cost of delivery, right, because you have a lower AOV, then you got to kind of make up with that in somewhere on the P&L. Either you got to get leaner on your OPEX, or you have to have a distribution channel that allows for, a lower CAC. So you have a higher MER and higher efficiency. So TikTok Shop would work well for this type of situation, as you can see here, because Meta would be too high of a line item to make that work. And then also like influencers, organic, things of that nature. So that's why it's very important that you identify your business leverage. So usually you have certain different buckets of leverage that you can pull from. Like I said, CAC, if you have a distribution channel, if you have a strong influencer led brand, if you have a strong influencer program, organic presence, things of that nature, that's a business leverage. Cost of delivery, you can have leverage there. Let's say you own, some part of your manufacturing, you have, very good pricing and competitive pricing when it comes to manufacturing. Maybe that's your idea of leverage on that side of things. And then OPEX, if you can really get lean on OPEX side of things and really outsource to contractors and using AI to really cut the fat on your OPEX side of things. But that's really the three buckets that you can really, save on cost to overall lead to a higher EBITDA percentage. And really you just want to optimize and really build your business from the outset around this idea of product distribution, business leverage, 4-quarter accounting, and really just reverse engineer it from there. The next big part of this, right, is you want to strategize on how you plan to capture LTV, right? So common question is like, is it consumable, right? Or do you have to inherently be first order profitable? So, right. So like an item like this, right? This is consumable. It's kind of a mess right now, but this is consumable, right? Like this isn't traditional like subscription, like something that you would like put on subscription or think of as a consumable, but you would have a high LTV and repeat purchase rate on an item like this because people need a lot of tank tops. People need the basics, right? So I'm wearing a tank top right now. I buy a lot of tank tops. This was something I would buy again if the product, was good. You know what I'm saying? Versus something like this, even though it's my own brand, this is not consumable, right? I wouldn't buy this again if I already had it because it's a streetwear design and I already have that piece. I don't want the same design. You know what I mean? So I would have to manufacture new product launches and new product drops in order to recapture LTV, and overall drive more overall profit for my brand, right? So there's different types of ways you can approach that. And then first order profitable, do you have to be like a marketing company strictly, like let's say Ridge, for example, Ridge Wallet, where it's a wallet, people aren't really buying another wallet, so you gotta be first order profitable on your first wallet, right? So you gotta have cost of delivery leverage there on that side of things. So there's kind of that question that you have to solve for on how you plan to capture LTV. Basically, LTV to CAC, right? This is essentially customer lifetime value over your customer acquisition cost. And basically, the higher you can get this ratio, the more scalable your business is going to be. And this is why like supplements and a lot of these consumable products, brands are popping up right now, and that categories has a lot of explosive growth. But from there, you just kind of want to identify an underserved niche. So once you have the product dialed and the distribution dialed, and then your overall business leverage dialed, and your way to capture LTV dialed, right? Now it's just coming into like what actual niche do we want to attack and serve, right? So this is a good example. This is a brand called Dad Gang, and essentially this is a brand that they made specifically for dads, right? So when you look at I'm going to talk about this later on, but on Eugene Schwartz, right? But basically these guys position themselves, right, in a way that appeals specifically for dads in that sense, right? So they're not just an apparel brand, like let's say like Polo Ralph Lauren, right? And they can sell hats or whatever, right? But people who are dads and identify with that niche and in that community, that tribe, will be more likely to buy from this brand, versus a catch-all brand like a Zara versus like a Zara or a Polo. You know what I'm saying? Just because this directly speaks to them. You know what I mean? And then Peter Thiel, I actually read this book, 0 to 1. He talks about, the idea on how we want to identify the valuable company that nobody else is building, right? So basically he says, what valuable company is nobody building? And then from there, you just kind of, that kind of hammers in the point of identifying an underserved niche, and really having that blue ocean strategy when it comes to things. And it's very important that we become clear on who we're targeting. And a good question that you can ask is, who's your brand's personality, or what is your brand's personality? And these are a couple gym brands, right? Or athleisure brands that we can look at, just for example. And this is just like off the actual Instagram itself, right? That we can actually pull from. And this is, I haven't scrolled down or anything. We can kind of see just from the content itself, like what kind of personality these brands have, right? So ASRV, this is a more technical focused, high quality aesthetic. So someone who's more refined, someone who has, more affluent background, things of that nature, he would probably identify with ASRV, right? So they have kind of money, they're interested in the tech, where all that stuff, Young LA, just kind of the bro vibes, Gen Z, things of that nature. As you can see in there, like I said, this is just like off the first screenshot, not even scrolling down. You can see their personality very clearly. Breeze Divinity, this is like I don't even know what you call this, like a dark emo, gothic gym brand, as you can see here. You know what I mean? A lot of dark aesthetic. And like I said, this is just off the first page. I'm not even scrolling down. It's very clear that you can see their personality. And then we have Aloe, a female focused, athleisure, influencer, cool gym athleisure brand, whatever you want to call it. But as you can see, it's very clear on their personality, just off these screenshots, right? And moving on to, what I was alluding to earlier with Eugene Schwartz, essentially has this concept called market sophistication. And essentially there's 5 levels of market sophistication. And basically we become so saturated in the market now that really you can only compete on a stage 4 or 5, right? Unless you come up with a new mechanism in a stage 3. But stage 4 or 5 is really where you can compete at. A stage 4 meaning you just have a superior product, right? So let's say you have a superior design, superior cut, superior fabric, things of that nature, right? This will kind of compete at a stage 4, that product itself. And then stage 5 is essentially just identity marketing, right? So kind of like this. This would be stage 5 on actual marketing, stage 5. right? On market sophistication, just appealing to a certain tribe and community and identity, right? So this is really where you have the ability to compete with, right? Really identifying your brand's personality, right? Because if I was a Jim Bro or a Gen Z guy who lived in LA, I would probably buy from Young LA because this is the people that represent me and who I feel like look like me. So I want to buy from people who look like me. You know what I mean? Versus trying to buy something from Breathe Divinity, which is not my aesthetic. You know what I'm saying? So you really want to identify your personality. This is kind of an example of the different stages. So number one, we make gym clothes. This is just stating the claim. Example is early Nike. Number two is basically exaggerating the claim. So ours work better. That would be Under Armour. Stage three is new mechanism, new hope to the market. So here's a special tech. So Nike Dry Fit. Stage four is kind of like stage two, where building off of that claim and just exaggerating the claim from stage three. So our tech is more advanced, Lululemon. And then stage five is identity, tribe, culture. This is who wears us. And that would be like a Gymshark. And these are just like all in the same category. So you can kind of get like a clear example on what this looks like. But basically, that's really what I would do if I was starting a brand from scratch. And that's basically, I'll just run it back down. Making a product, identifying a product, a way to distribute that product, right? And then identifying business leverage that we can have in that specific category, and then game plan a plan on how to capture LTV, and then really just from there honing in an underserved niche that we can clearly target, and then we can clearly curate a brand personality around, and then from there use the marketing fundamentals and market sophistication to really help us stand out. If you guys want more one-on-one help with me, you can click the link down in the description, taking on some new mentee clients. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. See y'all.